Hey folks, in this video I'll be reviewing Runecairn, a Viking Age RPG system that, you know what? Hold on. Let's do this right. Alright, now that's better. So let's take a look at Runecairn from By Odin's Beard RPG. Runecairn is an all-in-one RPG system that's ready to go and ready to play just with the one book. And it's intended to be played by only two people, the GM and the player, or as they're called in this system, the Warden and the Adventurer. And it is all Viking or Norse themed and inspired. It's really neat. All of the adventures take place post-Ragnarok, so the gods are dead and everything is kind of bleak and miserable. There's new titans that are wandering. It is absolutely a great setting for some pretty epic adventures and sagas for your player to unfold. The game is clearly inspired by video games, which is kind of neat. Usually I think a lot of RPGs go the other direction, right? The video game RPGs sort of try to emulate the experience of being a player at a table. But this game clearly takes its inspiration from other video games. And if you're a fan of some of the mechanics and how things work, especially in the Souls games, I think you're really going to like it. If you're not a fan of the Souls games, I still think that you're going to like this one. It's not that super difficult setting that it's emulating. Rather, what it's emulating is the idea of having these bonfires where your adventurer is able to rest and collect themselves, and when they die, because they probably are going to, death is definitely a part of this, those bonfires are where your players are resurrected to continue their adventure. In the book, you're going to get everything that you need for generating your characters, and there's a handful of really cool tables in the back in order to come up with their names and some of their main attributes. As far as your abilities are concerned, you're only looking at 4 attributes: your strength and dexterity, your wits, and your spirit. Out of those 4 attributes, all of the checks are made throughout the game as you try to do different cool stuff. You also do roll for and calculate your vigor and vitality and resilience. Now, this is one aspect of the game that I think it's the fact that it's drawing on video games kind of slows things down at the very beginning. Your vigor and your vitality, and you add those together in order to get your resilience, and in combat you're taking damage to your resilience, and then other things kind of come into play. And it sounds really complicated, and the game does try to take a lot of math out of it, but this is one area where when you first get started, things may be a little slower to learn. But that's true for any new system. I don't think that that's a drawback. It's just something I think is fair to mention. Now, in a video game where all of those scores and math are being done sort of instantly for you, that's not a big deal. After a couple of rounds of practice combat, I think all of that will become very intuitive. Like I said, not a drawback, but it is worth noting. Runecairn is built to have a narrative focus from the very beginning. And if you're new to that from other types of RPG systems, basically what narrative focus is saying is that the storytelling between the adventurer and the warden, the player and the game master, is kind of the most important aspect. Yes, we're going to roll dice and we're going to make checks, but the game does a really nice job of explaining that you don't have to roll for absolutely everything. If something's impossible, just tell your players that they can't do that. If something is obvious or easy to spot in their environment, then just let them know about it. It's about crafting the story together as opposed to a warfare-based tabletop grindy math and dice system, like some of the more popular ones can be. Not always, but we're not talking about those systems. We're talking about Runecairn. Now, I really like this narrative focus, okay? It's the warden and the adventurer, the GM and the player, working together in order to tell the story, and I think that that is so cool. It allows the warden to create the adventures that they want to and put the players up against these really epic things, it also allows the players to feel like an epic adventurer, someone that the sagas and the poems would have been written about. And I think that that's really cool. I also like that this system isn't really class-based. There are different classes, yes, but you don't have to just pick one at the very beginning of the game and then you're stuck with that, or you multi-class or something like that. Instead, what Runecairn does is it gives each class a key item, and by being in possession of that item and other types of items, that's where some of your abilities come from. So if you want to start the game as a fighter, as your warrior, that's absolutely fine. But then as you play and grow, you decide you want to become more of a skald, which is kind of like a bard class in this game. Then all you have to do is find a narrative way to express that and find that new key item, and you can start going through your game as a skald. And I think that's really cool. Something fans of different video games and the Souls franchise would definitely recognize is the Bonfire and the Souls mechanic. So throughout the game, there are different bonfires. This is how your adventurer is able to rest and regain some of their abilities and stuff like that. The bonfires also sort of act as a save point within the adventure. As your adventurer goes along, they're probably going to die. There's a very clear-cut death mechanic of losing basically all of your hit points and then failing a death save, and then they wake up back at that bonfire. I really like how this sort of fits into the narrative storytelling of the world. This is after Ragnarok, and the halls of Valhalla are emptied. You know, this idea that all of these warriors back in life, in the afterlife, would have fought and bled and died each day only to be resurrected and do it all again tomorrow, as this sort of way of experiencing the afterlife and these glorious battles. Well, within the world of Runecairn, after all of that, these warriors still experience that. Now, that's not to say that death is not without penalties. There is a way of becoming a shade, and really that's kind of the end of your story. But I think that Runecairn does a good job of taking a very clearly video game mechanic, a save point and respawning, and finding a way to make it make sense within the world of the tabletop RPG. I think that that's really cool, and it's got it going on for it. Also, there's the idea of the souls. Now, there's no experience points within Runecairn. Instead, big monsters, major bosses, things like that, these epic creatures that you're up against can drop their soul or a soul fragment. And by collecting those soul fragments, you're able to up your stats and improve as a player, as a character. I also think something neat that's a carryover from video game worlds is if your player dies with unspent souls, they lose those souls, and then it's up to them to try to go back and recover them, still having to go through the same problems, fighting the same creatures and dealing with the same obstacles and traps, but now they're able to do it again with a little bit of knowledge of what happened last time and hopefully overcome those odds. Because if they die a second time before they recover the souls are released, they disappear, and they've completely lost them. I also think that this is neat because it should hopefully help the adventurers to weigh their decisions and not just go running in head first thinking that combat is always the answer. A big thanks to all of our patrons, but especially to Alicia. If you'd like to help support our channel and get some pretty cool perks in return, then head over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative. As far as picking up a copy of Runecairn is concerned, you have a couple of options. So there is the hardcover version, just like this. Really cool art, both on the outside and inside as well. Now, the hardcover is going to run you $40, pretty standard for an RPG system. And I know the book looks small, but everything you need is in there ready to go. There's also a paperback version, which is only $25. So maybe that's the option that you would like to go with. Runecairn also has a couple of play options. First of all, there is a mechanic called the Oracle that you can use in order to play it one player, which is really neat. There's not a lot of one-person tabletop RPGs out there. It's a little bit more complex, and that's all right. You need to probably have a random number generator on your phone or pull something up online in order to be rolling dice or pulling runes. But I still think that that's really neat as a way to tell your adventurer's story just by yourself. And the game is clearly set up so that you can play it with more than just one adventurer in a more sort of traditional setting with the warden helping to tell the story of 2, 3, 4 other adventurers. I do think that if you play it that way, then each session, which is about 2 to 3 hours the game suggests, each session really should focus a little bit more on one of those adventurers. Again, it's meant to feel epic, like their saga. That is Runecairn, a new RPG system put out by Odin's Beard RPG. It's really neat, and I can't wait to sit down, just Dawn and I, and running a session of this. If the game sounds really cool to you and you want a chance to win your own free copy of the hardcover game manual, then just comment below and make sure that you are subscribed to us. We'll choose one person who is both subscribed and had something to say, and we'll send you your very own copy. So I can't wait to hear some of the discussions down below about what sounds neat from Runecairn. What do you think of the idea of a one-person TTRPG? How does it sound that it borrows from video games and seems to do a pretty nice job of putting that in the RPG world? I can't wait to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Ryan, and this is Roll for Initiative. Bye.